Conversations, the online program of South Asia Monitor. I am Col Anil Bhat. I am joined by Lt Gen Sanjay Kulkarni, Lt Gen Konsam Himalay Singh, and Mr. Jaideep Saikia. Briefly, I'll introduce them. Both Lieutenant Generals Sanjay Kulkarni and Konsam Himalay Singh have been put in hardcore service in both the line of actual control and the line of control. Line of actual control against China and the line of control against Pakistan. In almost every rank, at every level. Lieutenant General Konsam Himalay Singh has authored a book, The Making of a General. Mr. Jaideep Saikia is a security and terrorism analyst who's authored and edited about 7 books, including Terrorism Without Frontiers. I've had the pleasure of reading and reviewing Lieutenant General Himalay's book, and I think what is most important in that is his profound observations in almost all his chapters on aspects of operations, administration, training, and most important, leadership. And I feel there is a lot in all these aspects which can be applied to what is happening today between China and India on the line of actual control, and Pakistan and India. As far as India and Pakistan is concerned, there's not much change. The abrogation of 370 or the status of change of status of Jammu Kashmir from a state to a union territory is made no difference to the support to terrorism, the export of terrorism. I'll start by requesting the author of this book, General Himalay Singh, to try and relate what, from his experiences and what is happening today is applicable.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your kind introduction, sir. In my book, I have tried to connect and share some of the important issues which I felt needed to be shared with the future generations in the Indian Army. I'll begin by leadership issues. While the leadership in the Indian Army is perfectly in a fighting fit condition, I have no doubt that Indian Army's leadership will deliver when the time comes. But in the changing geopolitical scenario and activism of countries like China, I have written in my book that our leadership also need to think long term, firstly in terms of ethical leadership. I have given a few pages on the training of senior officers on the ethical officership in particular. As far as the Jawans or soldiers and officers are concerned, I have made a mention in my book, I quote, "I have full faith in the inner strength and capability of the officers and men of our army in any situation. Only the generals have to live up to them," unquote. thereby meaning that I think somewhere we need to think about how to have better generalship, far better than at least I was. Second issue that I have flagged in my book is about training. Training, particularly of officers, grooming of the middle level officers is one area where I felt that it needs a little more focused, and intellectual strength, providing intellectual depth to the junior and middle level officers, in fact, for that matter, for the senior level also, is another area where I have focused. And more importantly, jointness, which remains jointness in training of all arms service as well as inter-arms, Army, Navy, Air Force. Having been a battalion commander in the National Defense Academy, I realized that joint training should be put far more effectively trained than what it is today. The third issue that you mentioned about the operational, in today's environment, I have clearly stated that Chinese soldiers are far inferior to our soldiers as compared to them. Far inferior. I'm very sure. I'm very sure that as individual soldiers, our soldiers have the commitment, have the integrity, have the character, have the training, far more than the Chinese soldiers. But we have to integrate their sincerity, our integrity, their training into a far more better fighting machine. Another issue in operational side I have mentioned is that it is very important. I mentioned that there is a definite need to relook at our structures, relook at our procedures in the light of developing geopolitical situations. And I've also written there that we need to go back to the drawing board, that what are the threats and what we need to do from now on for a long-term engagement with such an adversary like China. Lastly, as far as logistics is concerned, I have tried to portray the strong points as well as the weak points of our logistics issues. In fact, my dear friend Sanjay Kulkarni was the Director General Infantry when we tried to push many things about the infantry itself. The largest arm, the cutting edge, along with the armored corps, and we should not take things for granted as far as the logistics. This is what I can only share. There are many more things in the book, but I thought these are the only crunch issues that I must share. Thank you very much, Col Anil Bhat.
Gen Sanjay Kulkarni, could you please relate from your experiences and from whatever you've known, Gen Himalay also in the past, I think you may have read this book also. What specifically are the issues that you can relate to what is happening, particularly ever since May 2020 in Eastern Ladakh?
Definitely. I must first at the very outset be able to compliment and congratulate. This book has been written by General K. Singh from his heart. If I know him for the last about 3 decades, he has actually written it from his heart. And there were so many things, much that I was in close contact with him. I've known him over the years and I've been interacting with him on professional matters. Certain things which I didn't know and I really got to know. And he's been absolutely frank and a soldier, straight soldier, talks straight, walks straight. He may not have had, been diplomatic, calls spade a spade rather than call it a digging instrument, and has also been advised by his seniors that he must learn to manage even the as he
His,
grew up with the
his
seniors.
bosses.
Yeah, because until and unless he manages that, just being a good soldier sometimes, and what he's also
But
brought out in
if
his
if
book.
I if I may interject, Sanjay, I think it goes to his credit that if it has been pointed that his boss management is not his strong point, despite that, for him to rise to the rank of lieutenant general, that too the first one from the northeast, first one in Manipur, I think it's creditable.
Absolutely, absolutely, Anil sir, no doubt about that. And that also speaks volumes of our organization, that our organization recognizes people like General KH. They see in him the strength, they see in him the sincerity, they see in him the hard work, they see in him that this man is committed, and that what he says, he doesn't beat around the bush. And that is what is the most important thing. And I think that recognition of his, and he having mentioned, I did that there were over 300 Manipuri officers, it includes women officers also, because I had two of them when I was the sub-area commander in Udhampur. And fantastic. They couldn't. And I would agree with him what he mentioned in his book, that the women are definitely an edge above. Not, I wouldn't say that the men folks in anywhere else are little less, but yes, tendency to maybe a laid back tendency. And rightly so, I think something which he has correctly and has not hesitated in saying that the communication skills are something which not just, I think it's across the country, it happens so much that our communication skills are lacking, not because of any other thing, it's the language that matters. Because we are all basically more towards Hindi, and not the entire nation would be able to understand and speak that language. And as soon as we join the armed forces, all of us speak only Hindi or we speak English. So these are the only two languages that are there. And so therefore there's a little, but yes, I think it's very necessary. But the troops that he led were absolutely Rajputs. And imagine leading those troops with the, but every person, I think every person can see that sincerity, the CK can see the commitment, the completely straight man who believes in what he rightly said, ethical leadership. And people recognize that. And I think I must compliment him. And we take pride in having officers like him. He's a role model not only for the Northeast, he's a role model for so many others. If not for his qualities of leadership, sincerity, hard work, his own friends recommended him to become and come to the MS branch, because that is the branch which require officers of a very high caliber and a very high integrity. And that's where I think it is an acknowledgement of his being straight, talk straight, and walk straight. Having said that much for my friend, who was, he has never minced words. He may not be able to abuse somebody, but he conveys it in whatever manner that he has to. By talking, tell him that, look, this is right and this is wrong. Now, certain aspects which he rightly said when he was a battalion commander in India, and before that I come, I think, like he quotes in his book, there are certain high points in his career that I saw when I was reading it. And to begin with, I thought his very first interaction when he climbed Kanchenjunga, that I think is, I would say, a turning point where he was now on the level where he was interacting with the prime minister. People recognize that here is a person, and lucky that he was, that his own company commander became the chief of the army staff. Now that is something which is very, very nice. A person with whose company officer that he joined becomes the company commander, becomes the chief of the army staff. They see in him what it is. They have not seen him change at all. He's just what he was, and he remained what he was even when he retired. So they really feel proud of him, and he becomes his, when he's MS and he's taking care, he knows what exactly is mentioned all about it in the book. That is one. Look at the way he's come up to say. So when we talk about leadership qualities, he writes that I wanted to become the first brigadier. And if you see the little photograph of his of Sainik School, on the corner you will see brigadier written. I don't know if it meant it that way or what it was, but there's a brigadier written in pen of his school when he joined Sainik School, Golpara. So that's something very nice. And to have 300 officers now in the armed forces from
From
one
Manipur, no doubt.
very high number, very high number, speaks volume that we require such dedicated, sincere, committed, honest, and hardworking people who are physically tough and mentally equally tough and mentally robust, I would say, that they can withstand anything. The pressures don't matter to them. So in that case, when he comes back again, the first thing, as I said, Kanchenjunga. The second thing is the battalion commander. When he's commanded in Siachen, and at a time when well, most people say that the Siachen operation, the Kargil operation was because of Siachen, the Kargil was launched. And despite that, his battalion not having been recognized, or he also not being recognized, and wherein even the chief of the army staff later accepting it, that yes, I was probably not fully aware of the kind of operations that you did for capture of 0.5770. And I think that is something which, and look at him, he's risen to the rank, he's been in positions where it matters, he's been in the MS branch, he's been in the, the other series of, he could have just told anybody. His own company commander became the chief of the army staff. He could have told anybody anything, what's happening, but he kept quiet. He's not one of those who would want to, he conveyed it, waited for his time, and accepted it and went along. His battalion, 27 Rajput, was under me when I was commanding in Tawang. So I know the officer who is mentioned in his book, how he and Saini went to the recce, because he was the commanding officer when I was the brigade commander, and I know the strong points of each one of them is fantastic. So that is one where even sitting there and ensuring that the operations are launched, how at that altitude of 19,000 plus to be able to guide. So he's one man who leads from the front. And that is what inspires people, because when they see the COs there, the shelling is going on. He also misses the shelling. The shell falls there. You can see his photograph next to a missile, huge thing. He himself doesn't know what arm it is like. And from where, who has fired this kind of missile? Believe me, I have not seen that kind of a missile being fired onto me in a glacier. So it's something very different altogether. I've seen only RP-7Vs that they were firing on me. But this is something I've never seen myself. What kind of a huge missile has come on him and just next to his bunker. So something that is lived that and take. And the ethical leadership mention about it is, as a battalion commander, he believed no beg, borrow, steal. Nothing to do with that. If you don't have, say so you don't have. And having gone to the commandant, wanting to introduce it, of course, I think he's far ahead of his times, and people are not willing to as yet accept what he's talking about, because it takes time for a change to come in. But wonderful. And I must compliment him for that ethical leadership part. And even what he mentioned, he did tell the Raksha Mantri at that point of time when they visited him, when he was the co-commander, as to what is it that you have in mind. He was blunt enough to say that my men have shoes which have been bought by their own money. And I was also on the fire, the entire thing, because he did write to me also. He wrote to the MGO also. He wrote to all concerned. My troops are not getting the kind of shoes that are expected. And can you do something about it? And we had to do it. And it has been corrected, it has been done. But something which even Shaw, the chief of the army staff at that point of time, may not have liked him telling the Raksha Mantri. And when they took the spot check, out of 30 men, probably 28 had bought their own. So that was a clear point that, yes, General KH was right. And that the chief of the army staff took corrective action. The NGO was also being told to do procurements, everything was set right. So there's fantastic things that he has all along. And I can then carry on, because since I know him for years, his role of insurgency, read the books and how the Manipuris are with the, all the Kuki Nagas and the Nagas there, where Jaideep is one person who knows more about it than anybody else. So I'll rather talking about request Jaideep now to take on than anybody.
And if I may mention here, as Indians, I think our knowledge of the Northeast is not very good. Now here we have Konsam Himalay Singh, who represents the Meiteis, who were, there's a kingdom called Kanglipak, which was much larger than what the map of Manipur is today. And Jaideep represents the Ahoms. Lachit Barphukan, the Ahoms resisted Mughal invasion 17 times. And the Meiteis gave the British a very tough time. They were the last to succumb to, to submit to British rule. 1890s. And they also, these two communities resisted the mass conversions that British tried to unleash on the tribals of the northeastern region. These are two communities who stuck to Vaishnavism, and as it's practiced there, it's the most graceful form. Jaideep, I request you to please relate to whatever is happening. You co-authored the last bit of the book with Gen Singh. Could you please relate?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Col Bhat, sir. I think Making of a General is a unique book, and it is truly a Himalayan echo. And I think I also echo what Gen Sanjay Kulkarni just said. And I think that the sterling qualities which he epitomized in the Indian Army, I've of course had the good fortune to have known him only since he was a brigade commander in Delhi. But my association with him actually grew after he left the army and he joined as a chairman of the Manipur Public Service Commission, and later on as an author and as a I would say a seer of Northeast. There are few people like him who understands, and he brings to bear the qualities which he had, you see, integrated in the National Defense Academy, in Sainik School, Goalpara, in the Indian Army, and he's brought it back to Northeast. I would say that, and pardon me for saying so, many people who actually serve the Indian Army would actually reside in places like Delhi, but he chose deliberately, consciously, to come back to Imphal, to Northeast, so that he can actually serve the cause of Northeast and India and Bharatvarsha, which, as you very rightly said, sir, we are a part of the greater Indian consciousness so wonderfully. So that is something which I think we should salute him for that. And I think the people of Northeast are very, very grateful that he has brought to bear his rich experience of many, many years in the Indian Army, which he served so ably, back to the Northeast. And I think the youth primarily of Northeast would be grateful to him, and posterity will salute him again and again in times to come. And I can say that for a fact because, as I said, my association with him grew primarily after he retired from, when he gave up his uniform and he joined the annals of the Northeastern dream, as it were. I think it is very important to understand a mind of a person like General Konsam Himalay Singh. And I have been a part of the book, as you said, sir. And I wrote the postscript only, of course. And in the postscript itself and in the entire book, his dream has been replicated again and again, and it is full of that. And primarily, he has actually given out a dream for the youth of Northeast. As a first general, 3-star general of Northeast India, which we are all very proud of, I think he has given the youth of Northeast and, of course, the rest of India a dream. I think that is the most important lesson from the book and from this webinar as well. As far as relating the book to the present situation, I think people like Konsam Himalay Singh has also worked out a kind of a strategic dimension to the aspects which we are now experiencing in the entire country. You referred, for instance, to the Eastern Ladakh and the Galwan incident. I think, well, recently I have had the good fortune to have gone to 3 Corps, have had a good experience to have interacted with both the GOCs of 3 and 4 Corps. But the fact of the matter is, the frontiers with China are now somewhat fortified. But one gets a sense that things might not be so good after 2-3 years for some reason or the other. And both the generals, General Kulkarni and General Himalay, have operated in the frontiers of the country, and they know it much better than I do. I'm just a mere student of security. But the fact of the matter is that we must guard ourselves. And we need people like General Konsam Himalay Singh's sagacity, his foresight, so that we can actually fortify the frontier with greater vigor. And I compliment General Singh once again for making of a general. His is not just a Himalayan echo. I think his echo is the echo of the Indian Ocean. Thank you.
I will thank you very much, gentlemen. I'll wind up by saying that at least related to the experiences that Gen Singh has mentioned in his book, and which Gen Kulkarni also has experienced in his service, we've seen probably the greatest operation of logistics in the process of the Indian Army occupying the Kailash range on the south bank of the Pangong Tso Lake. So Pangong Tso means a lake. I think it is unprecedented, and it has, well, to put it mildly, it has given tremendous indigestion to the dragon. They're very, very frustrated because of that, and just as well, because from the Kailash range, you can see them for miles and miles, and you can target them effectively also. This is one thing that they very, very allergic to, that why should Indian Army be very strategically located, tactically located within its own territory? This is, well, Dadagiri at its worst. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And an excellent, Consul sir, my salute for a wonderfully written book.
Sir, I wish you were my CEO. The way
If I may say so, sir, the last word.
Yeah, Jaideep.
The dragon is a mythical animal. It is far dead and gone. We, in the Northeast, we revere the elephant, which India epitomizes, and
No
it
doubt.
is here and present.
Excellent, excellent.
Once again, sir.
Thank you very much, Anil Bhat, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anil, sir.
Himalay. Thank you, Sanjay. Jaideep.
Thank you, sir. Regard.
Thank
Regard.
you.
Regard.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.